Going great.
All right. Hey everyone, welcome in. This is Mike Urueta, Iron Man Mike Show, and I want to thank you all for being here today. Hey everyone, this is Mike Urueta. This is the Iron Man Mike Show. Today is Monday, January 15th, 2023. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Mike.
Fantastic. Hey everyone, I have a special guest in the house today with us, and with me, I've got Ralph
Dagenhart.
and he is a United States veteran and he's an author. Pop Smoke, here it is right here. And man, I'm pretty excited. But before we get into the podcast, just real quickly, we had a chance to meet about this past month, and I've been going to this place called Richard's Coffee Shop, and I've had the pleasure to meet a bunch of veterans, and I'm really excited to have met you and probably several hundred other veterans. You all have amazing stories between the World War, all the wars that we've had. It's a museum. It's called Richard's Coffee Shop. And if you ever get an opportunity to come to Mooresville, North Carolina, and come to downtown Main Street, Richard's Coffee Shop, which I'll go ahead and put a link down in the description. And make sure you guys follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Mike Urueta, and on Instagram as well. So so everyone's going to want to know a little bit about you and your past. And before we get into the book, why don't you give people a little rundown about who you are and how you ended up here?
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the invitation to come and be with you today first of all. And so I'll tell a little bit about myself. I'm actually from the town of Troutman, just north of here. Grew up there, lived most of my life there. Went to school at Troutman, graduated from Troutman High School when it was a high school.
Gotcha.
Of course, was married prior to going in service. And as I say, I lived most of my life here in Troutman.
Fantastic. All right. So the unique thing about Richard's Coffee Shop is we have veterans that pretty much span almost every war. And I know, unfortunately, some of our older veterans have passed, and their legacy lives on at Richard's Coffee Shop. You want to tell everyone a little bit about how that works out there? And how long have you been a member and going?
Well, I found Richard's shop in 2002. It was not in the present location. It was across the street, and it was started by a Viet Nam veteran helicopter pilot in 1995. And so I found his shop and found it to be so wonderful to go in as a veteran. It was the first real chance that I'd gotten to be thanked for my service. And as you well know, most of the Vietnam veterans did not get a thank you when they came home. So Richard greeted everybody in his shop with a welcome, and especially veterans and Vietnam veterans. And it's quite a place. Richard, of course, passed away in 2009, and just prior to his passing, he formed a nonprofit called Welcome Home Veterans, and that's the nonprofit that actually owns the coffee shop. The main purpose in it is to help veterans in any way we can. That was Richard's vision, or Richard's goal, was to help a veteran in any way he could.
Right. Oh, that's pretty amazing. I've been coming to the Richard's Coffee Shop now since I moved to Mooresville, North Carolina, and it's been September I moved here, and I was downtown Mooresville with my family, and we were just checking out downtown, and my stepdad said, "Hey, look at that across the street over there." And we saw the windows. The windows had the memorial in there from the fire 9/11. He actually is a veteran himself, and he also was a firefighter. So that caught his eye immediately, and so we went across the street and got a little closer, and we were looking. You guys were closed actually no, you were open, but we didn't know you were at first. But we were looking through the windows and seeing all the uniforms and looking through, and all of a sudden we said, hey, let's go inside. So we went ahead and went inside, and I forgot the gentleman's name that has the daughter there that helps run it.
Oh, Gary, I believe you're talking about Gary.
Gary and his daughter, that's right. Actually, now that I recall, it was the evening time, and they said, hey, everyone is gone. We happen to be here late today because they were doing some special event that they leased it out. This was in September 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It was that weekend of this past 2022. And we went in there. He gave my family and I a tour, and he walked us through the history of all the museum artifacts of all the wars. There's tons of little rooms also, and each room had a different conflict, and he explained everything to us. There was airplanes hanging from the walls, model airplanes, different shapes and sizes, and there was weapons on almost every wall, different types, and it was just spectacular of what a history lesson that my family and I were getting, and it was actually really, really cool. And they said, hey, you know, I think now that I think about it, it was a Wednesday night, and they said, well, if you come back tomorrow, we're going to have everyone here. So we ended up coming back the next day, and that's when we got sworn in,
Right.
became official members, myself and my stepdad, and it was really, really cool. It was really exciting to be part of that and part of the whole process, and I was really excited about that. And you know, I don't have it on me, but I got a keychain with the beads on it that identifies what branch of service I was in, and I thought it was the coolest thing, and I'd love to be part of it. And I've been going to almost every Thursday since my first time. I think I've only missed about 3, maybe 4. I was sick for a couple weeks, but I missed a few. I didn't want to get anyone sick, so I didn't show up. But man, it was such an amazing opportunity to meet everyone and just the warm welcoming. So anyone who's listening and watching this podcast, I think the last 7 or 8 podcasts I've done, I'm always mentioning Richard's Coffee Shop, and I tag them in my podcast. And they just, I mean, if anybody wants to see artifacts, uniforms from every conflict across, you know, spanning, since the first one to the last one, we have representation in each and every one of these rooms. So
We know the real amazing thing about it is that it was never intended to be a museum with all the artifacts. Veterans and their families just started bringing those things in to Richard when he was alive. And so that's how it just evolved into a museum, and we've been told it's one of the best small museums around with all the artifacts that you're talking about.
absolutely, yeah. How long have you been a member?
Well, like I say, I found Richard's in 2002. I was still working regularly, so I could not go to his shop very often. But once I retired the next year, did some part-time jobs after I retired. And so I still was not able to go very frequently, but I was able to go much more regularly than I had been. And then, of course, I fully retired in 2016, and of course, been very regular, just about every Thursday since then.
Gotcha.
In fact, when Richard passed away in May of 2009, I was a member of his board of directors, and they needed somebody to actually manage the shop. So I told them I would try to manage the shop. So I did that until the end of 2016.
Okay. So you were one of the original board members and
I was.
helped run the program. That's great. So
Yeah, I was very fortunate, very humble that Richard picked me as one of the first board members.
nice. So he passed in 2009, and I understand that Richard Coffee Shop not only holds a museum, but has a nonprofit. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that Richard formed the nonprofit just prior to his death, and he got the paperwork back in February, just prior to his death in May. And had that not happened, I don't think the shop would be open. I don't think any of us individually could have kept it going. But collectively, we were able to hold it together. We started out with the nonprofit having less than $300 in the bank, and so we certainly had to get some donations right away. We asked the guys who were attending on a regular basis if they would commit themselves to just 1 year of whatever they could give. If it was $10 a month, 20 whatever, or a particular sum for a year, if they could do that, that would certainly help us keep it open and keep going. And so that's effectively what happened. And even today, we still have a few of the older ones who were there earlier who commit that donation on a regular basis.
Nice. Well, I know they help out quite a bit. They help veterans, and they've networked with the community. And I understand the community has completely stepped up to the plate and I mean, just in the short time I've been here since September, I've seen thousands of dollars being donated, recognition to veterans for various different awards, and recognition in the community for all the outstanding things that they've been doing. I mean, Dave, for example, he got recognized as as the hometown hero. He got a car donated to him, which he helps dogs, and he loves animals, and so that's, you know, that was pretty amazing. I've seen another person get a PTSD dog, excuse me, given to them, and I've just seen some amazing generosity from the community regarding that. You know, it kind of segues into my next topic, which, you know, veterans, you know, they protect America. And when we raised our right hand and swore to the oath to protect both domestic, foreign and domestic, I mean, that it didn't end.
No.
It didn't end for any of us. As a Marine veteran, I know, you know, once a Marine, always a Marine, and that's our motto.
Mm-hmm.
And I know other veterans and other services feel the same way. And, you know, I feel like I'm glad that the community has rallied together and are now coming to help and support. If you're watching this podcast and you want to help a nonprofit organization, a 501c that helps veterans, please donate. Richard's Coffee Shop, definitely donate to them. I actually am putting together a nonprofit myself, a foundation. My daughter's idea, she told me I should do that, Dad. And because I help veterans a lot. I've helped homeless veterans, I've helped raise money for veterans. I was part of an organization called, I worked for a company called Tesla Motors.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with Elon Musk and some high executives such as Josh Ensign, who was the vice president of manufacturing. And I worked with a veterans group, kind of like a club that we had at work. And we formulated, I remember one event we had a family 5K family fun day, and
Mm-hmm.
family fun day and run. And we raised $80,000.
That's great.
That we were able to donate and give to, I think there was 3 organizations, Got Your 6, the Semper Fi Fund, and I think Wounded Warriors. So it was 3 organizations that we divided the money up and we gave it to them. But I really resonate with helping veterans. I have a group called Extreme Sport 22. As some of you might know, veterans unfortunately commit suicide 22 a day was a statistic that was released a while back. I don't know what it is today. I'd have to check on it. But my Facebook group is called Extreme Sport 22. You can find my group, and if you want to become a member, you can join. And like I said, I also raise money to give to other veterans as well. So I'll put a link in here if anyone wants to donate. Please do so. That helps us continue the mission with helping veterans. In addition, I also coordinate and help Richard's Coffee Shop as well. I put together, do you remember the artist that showed up, Emma Hunt? I had a friend from the UK show up, and she did some music, she did some artwork, and she had some paintings. So unfortunately, she was only able to sell one painting. So not a lot, but she was donating a portion of her proceeds to help with Richard's Coffee Shop. And but anyway, moving forward, my whole point is why I went on this segue is veterans are kind. Veterans are there to protect and help, and that's what brings up my next topic. Vietnam. When veterans came back from Vietnam, a lot of them got a lot of hate. A lot of reasons because of that had to do with the narrative, the negative narrative that was put in the mainstream media. They put that narrative on there, and I had a chance to go through your book. Pop Smoke is what you're an author of, and like I said, I had a chance to read part of this and haven't read the whole thing yet. But I'm not going to steal your thunder, but as an author, tell us a little bit about your thoughts, because what I allude to right now, that was part of your writings, and yeah, do you want to share?
Well, first off, I never intended for it to go public. Some years ago, I realized that in the years since I left Vietnam, and I mentioned earlier I was married before I went in service. And of course, my wife was a part of living with me during that time and since. And so I realized I had never said much to her about my experience. I'd said even less to my 2 sons, and even less than that with my 4 grandchildren. So I decided that I was going to write something down to leave for my 2 sons and my grandchildren.
Memoirs?
Yeah, memoirs, something they would know that I did during my service. Because once we as veterans pass away, if we don't leave anything for our family to know about our service, then that history is gone. It's hard to retrieve that once we're gone. So anyway, as I said, I never meant for it to go public, but one of a good friend of mine, another Vietnam veteran whom I respect very much, convinced me that I need to go public. He said a lot has been written about Vietnam, documentaries, movies, a lot of things about the Vietnam War. But he said very little has been written by those of us who fought in it. And so he said, the public needs to know about your experience. And so that convinced me that I needed to go public with it. So it's about mostly about my 1-year tour of duty. I did include my entire 2 years, but I only had about 6 months left when I came back, so I included that in it too as part of my Cold War service. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly about my 1-year tour in Vietnam.
Yeah, a lot of people look at that and see only 1 year, but I can assure you who are listening, 1 year of hell was enough.
Well, I was assigned, of course, to one of the best units, divisions I think the Army has. It was the 1st Cavalry Division. They, of course, were the first ones to get the air mobile concept. President Kennedy evidently realized the importance of the helicopter and wanted to start building divisions around the helicopter. And so the 1st Cav was the first one. So I was, of course, drafted into the Army. in January of 1969. Took my training, of course, basic and then my advanced training in infantry. And then I was a replacement in South Vietnam with the 1st Air Cav Division. I was with the 5th Battalion of the 7th Regiment. And that's the 7th Regiment is another old historic unit. It was formed in 1866, and the first commander of that regiment was none other than Colonel George Armstrong Custer. I'm sorry about that, a senior moment there.
Oh, no problem.
But thankfully, we've done much better than since Custer. It's been a very, very legendary regiment since that day. I was started out basically as a rifleman, which I was trained for. Then decided to volunteer to carry the radio, the field radio, which evidently wasn't too smart. That thing weighed about 24 pounds, plus a battery that weighed about 2 pounds, I think, that supplied the power for it. But
I thought they were closer to 50 or 60 pounds.
No, the PRC 25, or it's called Prick 25, was about 24, 25 pounds.
Okay.
And then started out carrying a radio for the squad leader. Then I was asked by the company commander to carry a radio for him. And so I carried a radio for 3 company commanders while I was out in the jungle. I was in the jungle of 3 Corps, South Vietnam. Then my last 3 months, I was pulled into headquarters company, and I was a radio operator at the Tactical Operations Center, normally on a small fire base. So my last month and a half was in May and June of 1970, and that's when President Nixon sent thousands of American troops into Cambodia to try to find the sanctuaries that the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong were using. And so my last month and a half was in Cambodia, again on a fire base, but I was on the battalion radio.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there was quite a bit of conflict going on, and that's interesting how you volunteered, and next thing you know, you're like the radio carrying guru for different company commanders and leaders, and that was kind of interesting. So tell us about your book. What chapter or what part of the book resonates with you the most, that really struck a chord of your writings, of you deciding, like, I know you mentioned it earlier that you wanted to leave your memoirs, but is there a specific, while you're writing it, any specific chapter or stories that pop into your head that you want to share?
Well, certainly there were those firefights and those ambushes and so forth that happened just like other units, infantry units. But I actually had a couple of goals in writing the book, besides providing my experience with my 2 sons and my grandchildren. And that was, the first goal was to try to explain in my words the relationship that we were called grunts, infantry grunts, and the kind of relationship that we had as combat soldiers in a war zone. And it was a relationship, bonding that's come to the front in recent years, called Band of Brothers, which goes back to something that was tagged to one of the airborne units during World War II. And it truly is a band of brothers. We were so close to each other that we were willing to sacrifice our life for the other if need be.
Right.
And so that's the kind of relationship we had. And I put something in my book that I found that I think probably explains it better than I can. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to just read it.
Absolutely.
To your audience here. And this is an author that's unknown, don't have a name for him, but this is what he wrote. I now know why men who have been to war yearn to reunite. Not to tell stories or look at old pictures, not to laugh or weep. Comrades gather because they long to be with men who once acted at their best, men who suffered and sacrificed, who were stripped of their humanity. I did not pick these men. They were delivered by fate and the military. But I know them in a way I know no other man. I have never given anyone such trust. They were willing to guard something more precious than my life. They would have carried my reputation, the memory of me. It was part of the bargain we all made, the reason we were so willing to die for one another. As long as I have memory, I will think of them all every day. I am sure that when I leave this world, my last thought will be of my family and my comrades, such good men. And that's the kind of relationship that we as infantry grunts had. Because we had to depend on each other, day in, day out, 24/7. And we certainly didn't want to let anybody down.
Absolutely. As a combat veteran, I mean, I take my hat off to you and I thank you for your service and everything that you've done for our country. So I appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you for yours as well. The second goal, that was one goal for my book, and the second goal was to share how Vietnam affected my life then, and is still affecting my life today.
Yeah.
How I look at life, how I live life, how it has affected my faith, and so those were the two goals I was trying to present in the book.
You know, while I was reading your book, it jogged some memories of my childhood while I was growing up. And I'm going to throw this out there, and I usually don't get controversial at all on my podcast, but America, that was fucked up how you treated veterans when they came home. And I know it was a narrative that was put by the media. And if any of you media who are part of that, they're watching or listening to this podcast, shame on you. And I'm glad that my generation and on have stepped up to the plate to welcome and to finally show the appreciation that they should have gotten on their welcoming home back from Vietnam. Because over my years, before I joined the Marine Corps, I just remembered people being nasty to Vietnam veterans. My uncles, I have two uncles that were Vietnam veterans, and my one uncle specifically, I just remember him telling me some stories when I was a young man, and I was pissed. And I don't want to say that was one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps, to continue the legacy of my family of protecting our country. But my grandfather was a World War II veteran in the Army. And I have three uncles who were also in the, I think one was a Coast Guard and two were in the Navy, or maybe all three were in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And man, they just did a fantastic job. And my brother and my sister joined the Air Force. They're Air Force veterans. They both got out as staff sergeant, tech sergeant. And myself, I was the only one in my family who joined the Marine Corps. So back to my point, I'm really sorry that America treated you so poorly by the narrative that the media had portrayed and how they twisted the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And in your book, I saw a little bit of your writing about that. Do you want to elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, fortunately, when I came home, I did not face the kind of things that some of the other guys did. I came in through Oakland, California. That's where I had gone through the process through to go to Vietnam. And I got in early in the morning, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I went through the center there, processed out, and I was out of San Francisco before daylight, so I didn't see any of the anti-war crowd. I went back to my job that I had prior. Of course, as I said, I was married. Well, I did have 6 more months left in service, which I served out in Fort Riley, Kansas. But then when I came home, of course, went back to my regular job. So I really was just sort of picked up my life where I left it. But I knew that most people didn't appreciate my service and other Vietnam veterans. And so I really just didn't say anything about it. You didn't wear anything that would indicate I was a veteran. And during that time, a lot of people didn't realize, but some of your companies would not even hire a Vietnam vet if they knew you were a Vietnam vet. So you didn't put that on a resume.
Right.
So it just, and we as Vietnam veterans we're in the lead to make sure that didn't happen to those generations of warriors that came after us. So I'm proud of that fact that we sort of pushed that aside and hopefully made it better for the ones who come home today.
Right. Well, interesting that you mentioned Oakland because the MEP Center, that's where I joined and left from the Marine Corps. That's where I did my inductation. I think that center is where military personnel go to.
Mm-hmm.
So all branches of the service, so called it MEPS. Forgot the abbreviation, MEPH or something like that, S. Military embark processing, something, yeah. Anyway, so so when you said Oakland right now, I'm like, oh, that's where I started my career, joining the Marine Corps. And then we ended up going to the, I think it was Oakland Airport or San Francisco Airport, I can't recall now. And I flew to San Diego for a boot camp. But interesting that you mentioned that. That's why I just wanted to jump on that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that whole process of you guys returning, I just remember, like I said earlier, as a kid, I was hearing all this negative stuff. And, I used to play with Army men in the dirt in my backyard or front yard. And that's what we did as kids. And I had a high respect for military. And of course, when I discovered that my grandfather and uncles were in the military, that was just something I naturally gravitated to and wanted to be part of. Not knowing the whole veteran status when I got out, it would kind of shape my world from here, which is nothing I would have fathomed as a young man. But I've seen the paradigm shift from negative Vietnam veterans to now welcoming home award ceremonies. I've been part of a group when I was in California called Warriors Watch Riders and the Patriot Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And we would all have our motorcycles and we'd go do welcoming homes, whether it was a recent veteran, whether it was a Vietnam veteran, or unfortunately sometimes we did color guard where we did funeral details. And mainly we did welcoming homes. We'd meet veterans that were on active duty coming home, and we'd go do a welcoming home. We'd get the whole community rally behind us, and there were really big events. And I just remember doing some Vietnam veterans, just the look in their eyes of appreciation, the tears of joy, to hearing finally welcome home veterans, Vietnam veterans, finally getting a welcoming, respected homecoming, much too late waiting for, but finally arrived. Not all of them have gotten it, unfortunately, but the ones I had a chance to witness and be part of are tearjerkers. I mean, it definitely tugs on your heartstrings, and it was such a motivating thing to be part of. I was just, blessed to be part of that.
It is, and whenever we, at Richard's Coffee Shop, as we mentioned earlier, whenever a veteran comes in for the first time and they get that welcome home, especially if they're a Vietnam veteran, again, the tears flow. I've seen some tough Marines and tough special ops guys come in and tears roll down their eyes when they sign into what we call the Book of Honor and get the beads you're talking about.
Yes. It's such a great feeling. And I'm glad to be part of it to help other veterans that have not yet experienced this. And hey, if you're a veteran out there and just want to let you know that we appreciate you and you're loved, and we have a home for you. And I can almost guarantee in every state, I'm not going to say every community and city because I don't think that's possible, but you have a local veteran office that's near you that can help you and get you connected. So if you're struggling and you need some help, or you just want a group of, I mean, this is your home, man. This is other veterans that are here to, you know, just talk, or not even talk, just sit there and have a cup of coffee and share a breakfast. Here at Richard's Coffee Shop, that's what we do there. And it's a safe place for you to come and be with others who experience the exact same thing or close to the exact same thing that you experienced, and they're here for you.
I've seen one of the best ways that you just mentioned there is for veterans, especially combat veterans, to get together as a group in some form. Just go to a local restaurant and get together once a week, or whatever. But get together as a group, and that camaraderie will help. It will heal. It will help in a way that's really, it's hard to explain. But I see that happen all the time.
That's a great idea. Start your own. There you go. If you don't have one in your area, you be that person to start it, and other veterans will soon follow. Absolutely. So this is your book, Pop Smoke, and this is a great read, guys and gals. I just said guys in general here. But can you tell everyone where they can also get your book if they'd like to get your book and help support you?
Sure, absolutely. It's on Amazon, as well as it's in the gift shop in Richard's Coffee Shop. So those two places for sure. Of course, I have some myself, but I would only be available locally, of course.
So if you're lucky enough, like I was, I have a signed autograph here that, and I want to thank you again for signing mine, and appreciate my copy and I even purchased my own. So definitely want to support your veterans and get yourself a copy. And maybe we can do a book club and talk about this. Actually, this is a great idea. Get his book, read it, and if you are looking to start a little your own veteran group, this would be a great book that you guys can talk about and go over. So just a thought there for others listening that have not connected yet with any other veterans.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good idea.
So, what are your plans?
Well, I don't plan to write another book.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
It took a long time to write it. I started writing it, and then I put it down, and I'd come back to it months or some months later. So it took a long time to write it. And then it took almost 2 years to get it published. Of course, one of the reasons being with COVID, a lot of people were writing, and more books were being sent to publishers, so it made it a little harder to get it published quicker. But it's I don't plan to write another one.
Gotcha. So, what if someone is out there right now who has amazing stories, and who have thought also possibly writing a book? What advice do you have, well, first of all, I'm going to put links. I'm going to need you to send me an email with all your links and hashtags and everything that you want me to add to the book.
Sure.
Like a link where they can buy the book, and I'll put it to the video so they can click on it and go straight to your Amazon link.
Sure.
But in addition to that, if somebody has memoirs that they want to write, what advice or what can they do to get started? So that's like 3 questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, my advice would be, no matter what you did in service, no matter where you were, even if you weren't in combat, you need to write about your time in service. And you don't have to publish it like I did. It can be as simple as just writing down in a notebook to leave it for your family. But I encourage every veteran to write about their service, because, as I said earlier, once you're gone, once you've passed away, there's no way to retrieve that and it's history. You made history in the service. You did the job the military wanted you to do. You were sent where they wanted you to be. And so even if you were serving with other people doing the same job, your job was distinctly different in some ways, because some things happened in your job that didn't happen to anyone else. And so it's something you can relay to your family and let them know what you did. So I encourage any veteran, every veteran, to please write it down, leave it for your family.
Right. I'm gonna have to agree with that. I have to agree with that, make sure I said that properly. I actually started writing some stuff down as well.
Great.
Not to the extent of enough material or content for a book, but who knows? I actually thought about doing that one time, writing a book. And how hard is it to find a publisher, and to what format do you put it in? Just Word, or?
Well, I certainly didn't know how to go about it. So the friend I was telling you about that talked me into taking it to the public, he was instrumental in helping me get it to a publisher. And he had written a book, and he told me about the publisher he used, and was able to even intervene for me and on my behalf. So
Is his name David by chance?
no, it's John.
Oh, John.
Okay, you know John.
I know John. What's his last name?
Headley.
Headley, that's right.
He's our executive director of the nonprofit, and he has since written a second book, but he was the one who helped me very much to guide me in the way to go with the publishing the book.
Yeah. I actually have him scheduled for, I think it was the second week of March, so I actually have John coming here as well.
He's got a great story.
So make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel here and to my podcast on Instagram and YouTube. I also am going to be on Spotify and Podbean soon. I have accounts, but I just need to start uploading our videos. But make sure you subscribe, and Mr. John Headley will be on the Iron Man Mike show in March. So if you want to watch that one, we'll do a live like today and upload it. So yeah, appreciate that, you guys joining. So you're in the same area, because you said you're from Statesville?
Actually from Troutman.
Oh, Troutman, excuse me. Troutman. So Troutman's not too far from here. That's about, what, 30 minutes?
Yeah, about 10 miles.
10, maybe 20 minutes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What brought you to Mooresville?
Well, back in after I finished high school, I worked in Mooresville, and so in the later years now, we do shopping in Mooresville. I'm here much more than I was then. Back in the early days when I finished high school and started working, I just came to Mooresville to work. I didn't really, we went to Statesville to do our shopping and so forth. But Mooresville is, of course, a growing community, and a lot of the things you want to do and see are here in Mooresville.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing you like to do here in Mooresville? Because I'm loving Mooresville. I've been here since September, and I'm like, my family's all like, hey, are you gonna come back? And I'm like, no, I'm really liking Mooresville. Well, as some of you might know, some of my viewers know, I was stationed at Camp Lejeune in the 80s. So when I knew I was coming back to North Carolina, I was eager and really looking forward to it. So, but I was on the coast. I was on the water, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, Courthouse Bay, that's right on the water there. And so being here next to Lake Norman, Mooresville, North Carolina, it's awesome. I have a boat, it's still in California, I need to get it sent here. So I'm kind of on the fence. Am I going to be here longer than a couple of years? So I don't know if I want to bring my boat, just leave it in storage, or I'm going to bring it. So are you on the lake? Do you have a boat? What do you do here?
No, I'm not far from the lake. I'm about a mile through the woods from where the water backs up in Lake Norman, and I'm not a fisherman. I used to hunt a lot, but I'm not a fisherman. But I do like old cars. I'm an old car enthusiast, and try to go to cruise-ins and occasionally a car show, but I really love old cars.
Do you have a classic?
I have a 65 Fairlane 500 that I bought out of college, out of high school,
Okay.
and let it go after 5.5 years, and I got the same car back in 2005.
Oh, okay. So you still have it now?
Still have it now, and I intend to keep it this time.
There you go. I actually stumbled upon a 1929 Model A, and I was able to get that. I had that for probably 5 or 6 years, but I ended up letting that one go in 2009 after the economy rock bottomed. Yeah, I needed to let that one go.
Well, I had a nice 34 Ford street rod that when I got my Fairlane back, I sold the street rod, but I'd love to have it back, but I couldn't keep two cars,
Yeah.
so I let it go.
Well, you know, since I've moved here, I've been here since September 2nd, and what I've learned about Mooresville, which I did not know, and I knew about, but know 100% more now that I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm referencing is Mooresville is the heart, the birth of race cars.
It is.
And I didn't know that until some folks shared that with me. And one of the clues were okay, if you've ever been to Hollywood, there is the stars. There is stars, the Hall of Fame stars on the sidewalk. And it's got different celebrities' names on it. Here in Mooresville, downtown Main Street, on both sides of the street, are famous race car drivers. Not just NASCAR, but I'm talking about drag strip, Formula Ones, just all kinds of different racing. So not just NASCAR, but racing in a whole. And they have a museum here. Matter of fact, some of you already know, if you look on my podcast, I interviewed Richard Childress. He's a Hall of Famer. His star is actually right in front, or right next to the coffee shop.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's right in front there. Actually, it is right in front, because I laid down and took a photo with another guest I had on here recently, Ansel Brown. So he's the country western singer-songwriter.
That's right.
So Ansel Brown was here on the Iron Man Mike podcast, and he was part of the Dave Parkins car Hometown Hero giveaway. And when I looked down and saw his star, I'm like, hey, get a photo of me. So I have a photo of me on his star. I need to print that out and bring it to him to his event, because also Richard Childress also has, every 2 weeks, he also has a military veteran meeting, like a coffee shop, like Richard's Coffee Shop every Thursday. He does his bi-weekly. And he's a huge supporter of veterans as well. So there's a lot of huge veteran supporters. But anyway, back to NASCAR and race car driving. It's just, this is the birthplace of race car. And do you know a little bit more history about it, since you sounds like you've been here the whole time? Maybe you can share a little bit more than what I already know.
Well, of course, NASCAR, that type of racing grew up here in the South. And when I was younger, I used to go to the Charlotte Motor Speedway before it was the facility it is now. Didn't have near the seating, and used to watch some of the racing at the Speedway. I enjoyed it. I really thought a lot. In fact, when I was that age, I don't know why I didn't get into racing. I didn't mind the speed. I enjoyed traveling fast. And
Wait, you raced?
No, I said I don't know why I didn't get into it, because I love to drive fast.
Oh, I know.
But I didn't, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, that definitely been fun. I actually, as close as I ever got into race car driving is, I worked for a company called Toyota.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was a young man. I was a salesman, and I was a top producer. And I got selected amongst the other top producers in Toyota in California with the, we had a chance to go to, oh geez, was it Laguna Seca? Yeah, I think it was called the Laguna Seca Raceway.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to be the first drivers of the new Camry when it first came out in the late 80s. 80, oh geez, what year was that? I can't remember, maybe it was early 90s.
Mhm.
No, it was before the 90s. It was late 80s when the Camry first came out. So they had the DX, the LE, and the XLE. And we got to test drive those on the track. And that was such a cool experience. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, we were racing. And we used to go up and down, and I didn't wreck, but man, that back turn, I talked to Richard, if you want to hear the story I gave with Richard Childress a few weeks ago, but there's a back, and he used to race on this track, so him and I had a pretty cool conversation about it, but there's this hairpin turn up on the back, 3/4 of the track on the back, and it's this S turn and then a hairpin turn. And man, I'm telling you, that was such a cool experience of being, it wasn't an Indy race car like that, but it was still, you know, this car performed so well, and we got it up pretty fast. And it was pretty fun.
Well, I bet that was a great experience.
Yeah, that's as close as I've ever gotten to race car driving.
And of course, before Richard was an owner, he was, as you said, a race car driver. I used to see Richard race at Charlotte, and he didn't win very many races, but he was an independent, so he didn't have the kind of car and things to make it run fast like some of the regular drivers that were sponsored by big sponsors.
Well, he's big now. He's a big
He
sponsor
is.
now.
He definitely is.
He's got Austin, his grandson, Dylan, I think is the other grandson. So they are now racing for him. And he's got, I think he's got like 5 or 6 drivers now.
That sounds
But he's got quite a few, and I apologize, I can't remember the new one that he just signed on this past year. Oh shoot, sorry about that if you're watching, my bad, I apologize. But I remembered your grandsons. So I actually went to the Richard Childress Museum in Welcome, North Carolina. I took my entire podcast studio, took it there and set up. I did my podcast at his facilities. Have you ever been there?
I have. I've been there several times.
Have you been to the museum as well?
It is. It's a great
Oh
museum.
my gosh, that museum is so cool. Especially the one section. Switching gears a minute, no pun intended. Just switched gears. The environmental portion of it, the wildlife sanctuary, a portion of his proceeds go to wildlife preservation, and he's got his own preservation wildlife support, and that is so cool. All the animals, and you know, he's a hunter.
He is.
And he's got quite a bit of live, not live, but trophies. And it was pretty cool to see that. Also fishing, anglers. So if you're an angler or fisherman, you definitely need to go to the Welcome, North Carolina, and check out Richard Childress's museum. And you can also do a tour at his facilities to watch where the race cars actually get prepped and ready for the next race. As a matter of fact, the season is getting started. I got invited, well, let me rephrase that. I asked, to be quite honest, if there was an opportunity to join them, to be up there with them. And he said, there's a possibility, let us know when you're ready to come watch one. So I'm like, so I just need to, I have his team's number, so I'm gonna definitely ask and make that call when we get closer to the season. So that'll be a cool experience, because I've never been to Charlotte Raceway. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it will be. You'll get a good experience.
Yeah. So okay, so you have your hobbies. You're not a fisherman or a boater, but it sounds like you do your cars. Do you enter your car? Is it like souped up where you enter it?
No, I'm trying to keep it stock. It's actually a high performance, a factory high performance, the 289 high performance engine. And they didn't put very many of those engines in the 65 Fairlanes. The 65 was not a very popular car, and so there's fewer of those than there are some of the others. So it's sort of a rare car. with that engine in it.
Yeah, I've seen them before. And, yeah, so what color is yours?
It's a sort of a dark blue. It was called Caspian blue
Okay.
in 1965.
Nice, all right. And then, so, you want to tell me a little bit about your family? So you've been married now how many years?
Be coming up this summer on 56 years.
Jeez.
I didn't think I was that old.
Okay.
But I have, as I said, I have two sons, and of course they have families now. My oldest son has one son who just graduated from college last summer and is in the workforce now. My other son has three children. His oldest is a daughter, my only granddaughter. She's 24. His oldest son is 20. And his younger son is still in school. He's almost 17.
Okay, so you got yourself some grandkids then.
I do, and they're all locally around. The younger one lives not too far from me, and then the older one and his family lives down here in Mooresville.
Okay, nice. Any great grandkids yet?
No greats yet.
Okay, none of them are married yet.
None are married.
Okay, so that's coming soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure it probably will in the next few years.
Yep, there you go, that's great. So, what is it you like to do in the winter and also the summer here in Mooresville?
Well, I guess really the summer, the main thing is with the cars more than anything.
And what do you do with your car?
Well, like I say, just go to car shows and
Okay.
cruise-ins. I really like cruise-ins better.
Okay.
I've been in the past where I went to a car show and you have to stay all day, and if you get a trophy, you know, that's fine, but that's all over with now. I'm really not interested in the trophy. I just like to be around with the guys, see what they have, look at their
Sure.
vehicles. And
Okay.
I'm more interested in that than I am a trophy.
Is that here in Mooresville?
Well, they have some events here in Mooresville, and
Okay.
of course other areas in surrounding areas.
There's a museum, a NASCAR museum, off of 150, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone there yet. I probably need to make that a priority.
I guess it's still open. I think the guy who owned it passed away last year. So far as I know, it is still open.
Okay. And then, so that's summertime. What about winter? What do you like to do in the wintertime?
Well, winter, at my age now, I don't do a whole lot in the winter.
Okay, fair.
I do try to keep busy though. If I'm just piddling with something, I just can't sit in the house and do nothing.
Gotcha.
I have to be active.
All right, well, I know we're getting close to wrapping up. I definitely want to pitch your book a little bit more. Why don't you tell everyone real quick where they can get your book at?
Okay, thank you. It's entitled Pop Smoke, the memoir of a 1st Cavalry Division grunt, Viet Nam, Cambodia, 1969-1970. And it's available on Amazon and also available in Mooresville here at Richard's Coffee Shop and the gift shop.
Gotcha. What's your symbol in the background? Is that yours or is that the publishing company?
That's the publishing company.
All right, so-
A15.
A15publishing.com.
Yeah, the guy who owns that company is a retired Air Force veteran himself.
Oh, nice, okay. All right, well, thank you so much. I know we talked about possibly doing a book giveaway. Are we still gonna do that?
We could do that.
Okay, so, I would probably say, let's, anybody out there who would like to win this book, you have to go to the podcast. You have to go to YouTube and on Instagram. You need to subscribe and follow on the Iron Man Mike Show here. The podcast is under my name, Mike Urueta, Urueta. I'll link that on the bottom here. So let's see, what does one need to do to win the book? I'll let you come up with the idea. Maybe something that you said earlier in the book. Oh, I have a great idea.
Okay?
All right, you need to put in the comments how many years
You've been married.
Oh, okay,
Okay, don't say it now.
I won't.
We already said it. He said it already. So if you, the first person to put that on the video that I'm uploading, and you have to, so here's the rules. You have to guess the correct, how many years he's been married with his current wife, his only wife.
Right?
And boy, your wife would be a little upset if you had this wife going around.
She would be.
Yeah, I've met her. She's a very sweet lady, but I hate to see her when she's upset. So you have to subscribe to Mike Urueta, YouTube, and on Instagram. So you have to subscribe to both and hit the notification bar. And then you have to comment on this video. You have to wait until I upload it. And then when I upload it, you be the first person to comment how many years that Ralph has been married to his wife. And you have to watch the whole video because he said it during the podcast here. And if you're paying attention, you'll get an autographed book. Matter of fact, this book that he's given out, is that the one?
No, I'll have to bring you another one.
Okay, because, and your name has to be Mike, because he already, he wrote two, right? Did you want to give the second one away, the one you autographed to me twice?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we'll do a fresh one?
Yeah, I'll do a fresh one.
Okay, so, once you were, awarded as the winner, then we'll need your name and stuff like that. Now, regarding shipping, if you're in the US, we will ship my cost. I will pay for that. But if you're outside of the United States, unfortunately, you'll have to pay for your own shipping if you're the winner. So I apologize for that. But it'll be definitely worth it. It's an amazing book. And once again, it's Pop Smoke and by Ralph and
Dagenhart.
Daganhart. Daganhart. So Ralph Dagenhart, amazing book writer, and what I've read so far, it's an amazing read. So once again, go to Amazon. I'll put the link below. And do you have any social media that people can follow you on?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm not in the 21st century now, I don't guess.
Gotcha, no problem. I'm thinking if you had one and did one and just promoting your book only, that'd be a great opportunity for you to sell so many more online, because people who are listening could go on there and just buy it right now. And then what's the cost of the book of those that who don't win that would like to buy your book?
It's $13.99.
$13.99, guys, $13.99. And do any of the proceeds go back to Richard Coffee Shop or any nonprofit?
The ones I sell in the coffee shop they will get some of the profit from.
Okay, so a portion of his profits go back to veterans who, organizations, 501Cs who help other veterans. So I want to thank you today for being here, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for your service. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, any final closings?
Just if you're a veteran out there and you haven't written down your experience in service, please do it. Do it for your family.
Absolutely. There you go. If you have any memoirs, write them down, everyone. Everyone, thanks again for joining me today. This is Mike Urueta, and this is the Iron Man Mike Show, and I appreciate you joining us today. And I'll go ahead and put the link in here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification button. If you do that, you'll get the notification when this video is uploaded. Hey, thanks a lot, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, see you later, everyone. I gotta hit all these off buttons here. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.